Prince Ashitaka,
Yes.
show everyone your right arm. The infection will spread throughout your whole body, bone and flesh alike. It will cause you great pain.
Hello and welcome to all the Hillians out there. I'm Joe here from my co-host Stan.
Hello and greetings.
If you enjoyed the intro with Ashitaka and Mononoke Hime, because seems like we're kind of going to be redoing that story in some ways. We're also going to be revisiting the whole Scar's arm had to be cut off and replaced with his brother's arm thing, because why not? Okay, so the problem I have with the whole Ganon's gloom, as they call it. Yeah, I'm going to keep using that image of the Pokemon gloom. Circumnavigating the Master Sword, shattering it, cursing Link's arm, is that how come this has never happened going back to Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, and even in Wind Waker? How come this never happened in any other Zelda game? This doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, if Ganon had the power to destroy the Master Sword, why didn't he do it before? And this is supposed to be, I think, the same Ganon as from Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time. I'll compliment the game for bringing in the Zelda-tune idea and paying homage in that way in a subtle manner while being different from Zelda-tune is something I do like, but the problem here is that Ganon has never demonstrated the kind of power to destroy the Master Sword.
So far, my opinion is this shouldn't be a Zelda game. If this was anything but Zelda, it'd be much more feasible.
I wouldn't go that far, but okay.
You just mentioned Master Sword. If we started off with the original story and this legendary sword got shattered, my immersion wouldn't be broken.
On the other hand, Zelda's very much inspired from Arthurian myths, and Excalibur in one myth was shattered.
That's fair.
And Arthur then had to go get a new Excalibur of sorts. Yeah, I know. There's more than one. Technically, Excalibur's the sword he gets from the Lady of the Lake. And so his first sword shattered. This is an archetypal thing that I think they're trying to reference back to Arthuriana. The problem I have is that Ganon has never been powerful enough to shatter the Master Sword. So while I will happily reference Arthuriana to back up what happened in the game, the problem I have is this doesn't make any sense with the previous lore we have. Before anyone says, well, actually, every Zelda game is unconnected. No, that's not true. Every Zelda game has been proven to be connected to each other in some capacity, or at least have been proven to go back to Ocarina of Time. You see, Ocarina of Time is when the timeline splits, and after that we have all the different games which are sequels to each other in 3 different timelines. You have the child timeline, you've got the adult one, you've got the fallen timeline.
Prequels, of course, notwithstanding.
Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom basically being in the child time, where Ganon eventually comes back after a couple of generations in Twilight Princess. In Twilight Princess, he's certainly not powerful enough to shatter the Master Sword. He tries. He gives it a great wallop, but he doesn't succeed. Then there's the whole cursing Link's arm thing. Link has the spirit of the hero. He's the spirit of the hero, but he's also interlinked with the Triforce of Courage, which does give him some protection, I think, from Ganon. So how could Ganon shatter right through the Master Sword and curse his right arm? This doesn't make any sense to me. Because, well, as the wielder of the Triforce of Courage, Link gets perks. Is just part of his own innate abilities. Increased strength, stamina, vitality, and also protection from, magic. Or at least protection in some capacity, I think. Not to mention there's the Master Sword, which is very, very powerful. For a sword that seals evil, it doesn't seem to be very good at it in this game, given that evil just goes pashnook. And that part of the intro, I'd even say, is badly written. It'd be one thing if they had stuck, I don't know, Majora's Mask onto Ganon. There, I'd say, yeah, he's got the power to shatter the Master Sword. Actually, they maybe should have gone that way. And Majora was a very powerful villain. In some ways, I'd argue he's more than a match for Ganon. Majora gaining control over Ganon would certainly be one way to go, and then have him shatter the Master Sword. That would be pretty cool. And then you have to reforge the sword and destroy Majora Ganon. Moving on from that, you have Link, who spends 5 minutes trying to catch Zelda in midair, which, yeah, he fails. Honestly, that was the most predictable part of the prologue, and they don't really try to hide that that's what they're going for throughout the entire thing, so it's fine. That part I don't have a problem with. They're obviously not going to kill off Zelda there. When Link awakens, he's spoken to by Rauru, who did the Scar type operation to surgically remove curse cursed arm and put on a new arm. Okay, and Link just seems obsessed with clenching and unclenching his new fist, which he's getting reacquainted with righty, which I guess this latter half of this prologue I've got a problem with just because they really steal, if I'm going to be honest, from Mononoke Hime. And while I really love Studio Ghibli's Mononoke Hime, and I actually genuinely always kind of wanted a sequel, nowadays I'm content with what we got. Here, having Link basically reenact Ashitaka's role, the whole thing with the cursed arm, which I suspect they're probably still going to have this new arm be cursed. Because I just have an inkling that's where they're going. I've not yet reached further into the game, so bear with me here. I'm still watching it. Yes, I did say watching it because we're using someone else's playthrough. I don't have the time for playing such a game, sadly. But this is where I just find, why take from Mononoke Hime when Zelda has a lot of literature and lore to it all its own? You don't need to have the cursed arm. Part leaves a bad taste in my mouth because it leaves me cold, because I don't really want Legend of Zelda to copy from Studio Ghibli. Because let Studio Ghibli be Studio Ghibli. Let Zelda be Zelda. They already kind of took from Studio Ghibli with the Pokemon I Choose You movie, which was fine. Now, that being said, if they were making a Zelda OVA or movie, I'd say yes, get Studio Ghibli to make it. They're the ideal studio. That would be fine. But this is a game, not a anime movie. And I realize that this is going to get a lot of dislikes. But I'm just trying to be fairly balanced about this whole thing because this latter part of the intro is not great. I really love Mononoke Hime and I rewatch it probably about 1 to 3 times a year. I also tend to watch Spirited Away that often. These are Studio Ghibli's 2 greatest films. I just want Zelda to be different and apart from it.
To me, such a cursed arm storyline, even separating Studio Ghibli from it, I think it would work with a voiced protagonist, not a silent protagonist, like Link. Hence why I think if it were a different game outside of Zelda, Fire Emblem, it probably would work far better. But because they're the Zelda skin, pardon the saying, both of them are holding each other back so far, in my opinion.
The tutorial, from what I can see, basically holds your hand throughout it in a way that's not like most Zelda games. In A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, you were basically forced to kind of learn as you go. And this is actually something I really liked in those games in hindsight, because you kind of get a tutorial, but you have to learn it instinctively. So that by the time you're finished with it, and you're pretty much facing the one giant spider in the Great Deku Tree, or you're halfway through the Hyrule Castle in A Link to the Past, you figured out the general commands and how to play the game, all on your own. It was a little, or a lot more difficult than this, but there was just something nice about how you had to learn as you go. You had to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Whereas here, having the game hold your hands and tell you how to pick up the sword, how to swing it, how to open a box.
I don't know, it feels kind of infantilizing to have them hold your hand through it when you can figure it out on your own.
The tutorial I'm not a big fan of, but let's be honest, it looks great. The visuals look great. I like the coloration of when, the box opens and whatnot. The preference for the color green in relation to Link, that's an old staple. That's very old Zelda staple.
One thing I actually liked was when the gears started turning on the side, I like the fact that they respected the physics in regard to that.
Yeah, that's true. Having the gears shift and whatnot and rotate and all perfectly shows a lot of respect for physics, as you said, and shows a lot of attention to detail on the developers and programmers' parts. I have to admit, I'm very impressed with the visuals of this game. I don't think the visuals are anything anyone can really complain about. My only nitpick is I don't really care for Link's haircut. I prefer him with shorter hair. What's funny is that Zelda in this game has very short hair, and I prefer her with the long hair. I just think Link pulls the short hair better. But on the other hand, the visuals they look great. Even the sound and the music and whatnot is great. So while I do have my complaints about the way the tutorial works, and I do have my complaints about the sword thing, and I do understand the sword thing from an archetypal point of view, while I'm not exactly keen on it due to the previous lore, that said, they might be taking us on a great hero's journey, so we do have to keep an open mind in that regard. Obviously, they're going to have you repair the Master Sword, and likely they're going to have it even more hallowed than before, as that's an old trope. And Ganon's going to be shocked when he sees that the Master Sword has been fixed. And of course, you're going to have to journey your way to Hyrule Castle, or at least Ganon's castle and fight him there like you did in Twilight Princess and in Ocarina of Time, because fighting Ganon in a castle seems to be a pretty old trope. It's not gotten old yet.
Sometimes an old trope like that is good, and I hope they do it well.
The design of Ganon actually looks great. That's kind of how I imagine Zaldatoon would look if I had to draw him. So I really, really like the design team and artistic choices with Ganon. And I actually hope he looks like that when you go to fight him as an endgame boss.
Oh, and as to the hearing Raru's voice in Link's head thing, that's a little weird. So I'm just gonna leave that here. While I'm not against it, it is weird. So I do hope they explore more of Raru and his lore further on in. From what I understand, they will. So I'm pretty excited for that.
Hope everyone enjoyed this video, our part 2 analysis of the prologue. Next time, we're going to continue with our analysis of Tears of the Kingdom. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Link properly taking out Ganon with the Master Sword well in hand.